Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. Now today what we're going to be doing, it's another technical video, which you probably guessed by the fact that I'm standing in the kitchen next to a machine, and we're going to be doing a strip down on this Hoover Junior. And one of the things that inspired me to do this now is that I've been watching Hoover on his channel doing some junior strip downs and refurbs, and Hoover channel is a very good channel. It hasn't been going all that long, but he's amassed an awful lot of cleaners very quickly, and what he's trying to do is build up his knowledge on vacuum cleaners. Now, he's done a pretty good job on these juniors when he's been refurbing them, but the one thing that he says that he struggles with is to actually remove and strip down the motor in a junior cleaner like this. I mean, this is a 1346A. I've got a couple of juniors here. I've had a lot more juniors in the past, but a lot of them have gone to the tip because they literally have been absolutely no good at all. But I have kept a couple of the best ones, which are my favourite models, the 1346 and the 1346A. I may well get some more in the future of a few later ones. You don't seem to get many coming up where I live and near me, because I can't travel really that far to go and pick them up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip this down, and we're going to remove the motor, and we're going to split the motor, and we're going to show you what's inside it, how to get to the bearings, and how to oil or grease the bearings. So we can either oil them or grease them. I don't really mind which ones I do. I usually put some spray grease in, and hopefully he should be able to start doing it to his own, because he had one that was very it just sounded like the bearings were very dry and it desperately needed to have the motor removing. Now he was going on about sending the cleaners down to Sam Watson, or some might have known him as Becco 1987. But I thought, well, you can't keep sending them to Sam. Sam's got enough of his own cleaners to do. So go on, take it out, get the motor done. I'll show you how to do it. Okay. So it might be a two-part video, this one, depending on how we go. In fact, it probably will be, because it's a little bit more involved taking these to pieces like this down to the motor level. I think they're a little bit more complicated than the Hoover Senior I did quite recently, in the fact that the motor's a bit more tricky to get out of the cleaner. Right then, let's angle the camera down. Okie dokie. Just put it right down onto the workbench here. It's a bit awkward in this kitchen because it's still on top of a microwave oven at the moment, and it's not ideal, but we get by. There we go. I think that's. I'll get it off the stand anyway, and we're going to do some close-ups. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip this down. So I don't know whether I'm going to actually need to take the bag and the handle bale and everything off, because what we're intending to do really is just strip the actual base down to get the motor out, because it's the motor that's causing the issues with some collector, that he just struggles with the motor. So we will see how we go. We might have to take the bag off, we might not have to take it off, but at the end of the day I don't want to have to do more than I really do have to do. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to take the brush roll out, which is an easy thing, because I always store these with the belts off anyway, so we don't even need to take this to slip the belt off the spindle. So we'll take that off, and then we'll get our base off. I'm going to have to use the manual screwdriver on this one today, because this old Black & Decker thing is really knackered. I need to get a new electric screwdriver, to be quite honest, because I've had two of them go this year. I had a Bosch Oxy or IXO that I had for 10 years, and unfortunately the switch packed up on that earlier this year. It became intermittent when I was trying to use it, and in the end it wouldn't work at all, so I've had to throw that out. And now this one, it looks like the battery's giving up on it, so it's going to have to be a trip to B&Q, I suppose, to buy another electric screwdriver. So there's the base then. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove, first of all, remove the back wheel assembly. I might have to remove the handle bail by the looks of things. Two screws for that. Because one of the biggest problems getting a junior motor out is the fact that the mounting screws for it are set right down at the bottom here, and you need a long screwdriver to be able to get to them, and it can be a little bit tricky. So there's the back wheels off. I don't think we actually need to remove the handle and the handle bail from this actually, so what we will need to do though is to remove the terminals for the cable. So obviously we're going to take the motor out, we don't need it to be wired in. That's the first one out. And then we don't want to lose the screws either, because they're very, very small and they can quite easily drop down and get lost. So I'm going to put the screw back in after I've taken the little terminal off. Okay, that's the live taken off. Now we're going to take the neutral wire off. That's the wonderful thing about these old cleaners from the 1970s here and the 60s. They always had little tiny terminals on the end of the wires. Everything, the attention to detail was really good back then. The way they had little terminals on. You didn't have to wrap the wire around the screw or put it into a connector block. Right, so then we can, I think what we'll do is remove the cable clamp as well. Remove that. There we go. Put that to one side, and then we can pull our cable out of the motor like so. Now with this cleaner, what I did earlier on this year, I actually removed the suppressor out of the line. If I just focus down on there, the suppressor on those is actually mounted on the side of the motor, and you can see it just there, that round cylindrical item where my finger's pointing to. Now you can see that there's terminals on there, but there's nothing connected to them, because I've actually, there's another one on that end, but I actually bypassed I took it out of the loop basically, and just did a little wiring modification in here to enable it to run without the suppressor, because as people know, the suppressors on these have a nasty habit of going pop. They do. So it's best really to remove them. Okay, now what we need to do is to remove the switch now as well. So we're going to take two Phillips head screws out and remove the switch. I think most people know how to remove switches and these. Just put those two screws over there so I know where they've come from. Okay, what was I doing? Removing the switch, yes, that's what I was doing. Okay, so there are the two screws for the switch. The idea is that we want to be able to remove this motor and have nothing attached to it. So it's getting to the stage now, very, very, very soon, where we'll be able to do that. Hopefully. So let's just have another look here. How did I get to that rear screw before? I've got a feeling I might have to take the handle bail off, because I need to get through the hole here to be able to get down to the screw. So yes, I'm going to have to take the handle off, which means I shall have to take the cable out of this grommet. Come on, don't play me about. There we go. We'll have to take these two screws out now. One. And 2. Okay, now what we're going to have to do, I'll just show you this. We're going to have to take out, we've taken out all the screws from the handle bail mounting here, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove that screw there so that I can actually remove the handle. So I'm just going to do that now. So we need a large flat-headed screwdriver to remove this. I'll just unhook the bag as well. So there we go, that's the screw removed for the handle bail there. And then we should be able to just pull the cable out and remove the handle, like so. Okay, so that's removed along with the cable. Very easy. Okay, that will now enable us to oh no, what I'm going to have to do now is to actually take by the looks of things, I've got to take off the little pedal now, which is this here. So that's basically going to be a little screw that will enable that to come off, and we'll put that down here, and hopefully now we should be able to just lift out the handle bail, okay, like so. Right, so now what we've got is this situation here. We're going to try now to get to the bottom screws, which are right down in the bottom of here, and there's another one, if you can just see it, right down in the bottom corner where my finger's pointing down there. That is the most difficult one to get to, and as I say, there's another one right down in that bottom corner there, and we want to take that one out and that one out. So let's do that now, hopefully. I'm going to have to turn it round because I'm right-handed, so I need to be able to get to it like this, and you should be able to see what I'm doing a bit better now because it's facing the camera, hopefully. I don't know if I can zoom in on that. Yeah, looks like so. Right, let's take the top 2 out. Top 2 motor screws. Right, that's one. And the other one. There we go. Now then, now for the fun part. I've got to think now. That screwdriver won't quite go down in there because it's not quite long enough. The other one you can usually get to from the back here. But what I'm going to do, we've got this extended screwdriver here with the screwdriver bit on the end, like so. So hopefully that should go down into the bottom. That should get this one out, and getting them back in as well can be a little bit of fun and games. That's that one. Now we need to get to the one on the other side. Now normally there's a little cutout on the bottom, just here. If you can see that cutout there, can we see it on the camera? Just here. Normally that's there to get your to enable your screwdriver to go down through this gap. It's very tricky to get to this bottom screw. but it can be done. There we go, we've got it. Perhaps I don't really need that much length on there, I can just take one of the extensions off. If I just focus in, we can see where the screwdriver is going, right down the bottom to the screw in the bottom corner. That's the screw we're aiming to take out. Okay. I think we've just about got it now. We don't have to take it out all the way because when we lift the motor out, it'll still be there. Okay, that's that. So both screws are now slackened off. So this is good actually, because what I'm going to do when I take this motor out now is remove that suppressor from the side altogether, because I don't really want it on there at all. I only did that because I couldn't be bothered taking the motor out at the time. So now we can just literally rock the motor slightly from side to side to break the seal on the fan case, and then we can manipulate the motor out. Okay, and there are the two screws at the bottom. You can see one here and the other one's there. So I'm just going to remove those now and put them down here. 4 motor screws. And then we can put our motor to one side. Okay, so we don't need to go any further with Stripdown on the base now, because essentially we've got, if I just zoom the camera back out again, everything now bar the wheel mechanism is out of the machine, out of the base, and there we can actually see the inside of the fan case, and we can see the dirt chute that goes from the fan case up to the bag housing there. It's plastic on this, but on the earlier models I believe it was actually metal. So all the time Hoover were cheapening these things and putting more and more plastic parts on them to save money. Then again, we can tell this cleaner is in actually pretty good condition for its age, considering it was made in 1970, so it's older than me. It's what, it's going to be 47 years old now, this. I've got a 1346 upstairs that's 50 years old, one of the very early ones. But yeah, there we go. Right, let's just put this to one side. And I'm going to just have a sup of coffee now. Yes, you've got to have that, haven't you? Okay. So now we've got our Junior motor. Let's see if I can zoom in on that now as well. It's not easy with this camera, to be quite honest. It's a little bit fiddly. There we go. Now, what we're going to do first, what we're going to aim to do is to split the motor into 2 halves. Okay, so we've got the casing is you've got one half here and you've got the other half there, and it's split straight down the middle. Okay, here we've got the fan. Now, I don't know how much this camera can see. Yeah, you can see that perfectly. There's the fan and there's the pulley. Now what I'm going to do, we'll let's just remove the fan first. So I'll get my mole grips on the end of here. And the idea is that we want to try and move the mole grips as if we're tightening it up, because it's a reverse thread on one of these. And it shouldn't be that difficult, because I mean, I've had this all to pieces before, so it's actually, I did put a little bit of grease inside here last time to make sure that this would come off quite easily next time. So we unscrew the spindle, and I believe we can still get these on eBay, because with these the actual spindle wears Okay, you can see that little tiny wear mark in there, and eventually that wears all the way through. And I believe they can actually snap off altogether, or the belt just keeps coming off. So that is actually a wear part that can be replaced, that spindle. And it's the same with the fan as well. So we should be able to just pull the fan off like so, and there's our Junior fan. And you can see the little tiny balancing marks here on the back where they've drilled into it to balance the fan. The little washer here that we mustn't lose. Okay, put that to one side. In fact, I'll just leave that inside the fan. Right, and on the spindle, okay, we've got another washer here, which we'll put on the back of there, and we've got a spacer. Okay, and put that on the back of the fan as well. So that's the fan removed, and now we can see there is actually a slight little bit of play. It'll move in and out slightly. Most Juniors do, and the worse that gets, it's not good news really. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the suppressor altogether. Use a flat bladed screwdriver. Take these two screws out. One. Two. That's the suppressor removed. I think what I might have to do is to put it back on afterwards, because these screws actually fasten the field coil to the side of the case, so they've got to go back in after. And without that spacer on there, I'm just wondering whether they'll go in too far and cause a problem. So I might just have to put the housing back on, but without the suppressor in. So we'll leave those just separated. There's the suppressor, by the way. So that's 4-terminal suppressor, that is. There has been a video done by Vintage Appliances. I can't remember. It used to be called, oh God, what was it now? Melanie Bean, I believe it was. His channel was called Melanie Bean, and he's done a video of how to remove a suppressor out of a Junior and do the wiring modification. So if anyone's interested in that, that'll be on his channel. I think it's called the Vintage Appliance Emporium now, his channel is. And his name's Steve Cook, and he's got about 300 to 400 vacuum cleaners, so he's a pretty avid collector. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to remove these screws. It's a bit tricky here on the camera. You've got one, can we see that? One screw here, one screw here, and one screw here. So we're going to take those screws out first. And there are little nuts on the other side, so you've got to be careful if they do drop out not to lose them. That's one. A little bit rusty these are. We're going to have a part 2 to this video, because I've only got 6 minutes remaining before the end of this particular session. The camera only records in 30-minute intervals, so I've got to end this video and then we'll start the next one. So there we go, that's the third one removed, and there's the nut come off the other side. So I shall just put that as the rear one there. And I believe, have we got, we should be able now to very carefully, we're going to take this rubber seal off here as well, off the front. That's the fan case seal, by the way. They don't use like silicone. That's a proper rubber seal. So what we should be able to do is to split the motor in half at this point. And in able to do that, I'm going to have to remove that screw on the top of here. Can we see that? That screw there, which is the brush, the carbon brush mounting tab screw. So I can remove that and take off the wire, and then instantly we see the spring pop up. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to just put the brush out, and there we can see one of the carbon brushes. We'll put that to one side, and I'll put the tab back on here so I don't lose it. Right. They're very, very fiddly, these little screws. There we go. Right, so now what we can do is we can just split the motor into two halves like so. Now what can we see on the camera? Yep, we can see that. So what we've got now, if I get this down, focus back out, we have got here the front bearing, which is just inside here. And then we've got the rear bearing, which is just here. So what we're going to do, let's just see how long we've got left on this. We've got to take the bearing retainers off. That's one there and one here, and I'll be doing that in part 2 of this video. So I'm going to end this one now, and we'll carry on in part 2.